Welcome back to Chicago, the only place where a double homicide can land you a standing ovation and a headline bigger than your conscience. We're continuing our Chicago discussion here on the BSB Podcast, focusing on the music and stagecraft of this classic show. But before we dive in, like, follow, and subscribe to us, BSB Insider, on all social media platforms at bsb.insider. Spoiler warning, we are entering the Cook County Jail for an intimate look at the show. So if you wish to remain unspoiled about the show, pause this episode and return once you've seen it. However, if you're still here, loosen your tie, practice your innocent face, and keep your lawyer on speed dial, because in Chicago, the real crime isn't murder, it's being boring. RJ, on the last episode, we covered the story, and I think as we were talking about the story, we kind of realized that Chicago is so connected. like it was really hard to talk about the story without talking about, we dabbled in a little bit of music, we dabbled in a little bit of song, and dance, we dabbled in a little bit of costumes. But when you really think about it, Chicago is not a narrative heavy show, but it's all of the razzle dazzle that really brings people in to see Chicago. It's kind of what I gathered from our conversation from part one.
Yes. That, again, jazzy music is really, I think, what makes people interested and come back to see this production, because it's just, it's a specific time, it's a specific place, and those times and places don't really exist much anymore. So people can go live vicariously by seeing the show.
So just a quick recap of the story of Chicago. It is set in the 1920s Chicago, where it's aptly named, and it follows the story of Roxy Hart and Velma Kelly, two women who are in prison for murdering people and are trying to get out. So naturally, the only way to get out of prison is to become a star and get your name on all the bright lights, and then therefore you can leave. So really it's a struggle between these two women as they're fighting to become the star of Cook County Jail. And what I think is interesting is that right from the beginning of the show, we get something that we don't see a lot anymore. Granted, the show has been running since 1996, originally from 1970, and I'm sure that it hasn't changed much since that original Broadway show. We get an overture. And I know you, as a musical nerd, love yourself a fucking overture. What was it like to hear an overture once again on Broadway, bringing it to life? I feel like the only time we've really seen this recently are other revivals. So I think that this is interesting. This is like a time capsule of Broadway right here. And so what was it like for you?
Well, and this overture is a little bit different, and
Okay.
yet the same to our friends over at Chess, again, in the sense that it's an open stage, it's an open band, open stage overture. So you're basically being introduced to the orchestra immediately and watching them, which doesn't happen super frequently, especially not in modern day musical theater. And yeah, you get this, however long overture, which honestly, as we mentioned in part one, I knew nothing about Chicago. So literally when the curtain came up, I had no idea that a full orchestra would be sitting on stage. So it completely threw me. But when I saw it, I immediately knew what kind of show it was going to be. So I always appreciate when the orchestra gets their due, especially in a show like this where it's so music heavy. So it's appreciated, even though overtures are typically so long, and I'm not. They're supposed to really set the tone, but I'm just not sure that they really do that.
It's interesting because you say set the tone. I always wonder if it's there to make sure that they can get everybody seated, and you know what I mean, before they start the show. Like that gives you an extra 20 minutes sometimes of listening to a music before the show actually begins. But I also get what you're saying too. It is kind of welcoming you into the show, and a lot of classic musicals have this. I mean, I grew up on Sound of Music. it even has an overture as you're beginning the show. It even has an entree, which is what you call the overture for the beginning of Act 2. I probably butchered that name, so I do apologize, RJ. I'm probably sure you're shuddering a little bit of being like, gosh, this musically inclined individual doesn't know what he's talking about. But all that to say that when I saw the local production here in Michigan, shout out to Pontiac Theater 4, they did an incredible job with the performance, but the band was off to the side, which makes sense. They don't have a very big stage there in which they are trying to produce a full show musical. So I was also shocked when that curtain came down or went up or came off to the side. I can't remember. I think it was pulled off to the side, but I could be completely wrong. And that band was sitting there because we don't see that very often anymore in a Broadway show.
Yeah. And just backtracking a little bit, you are actually right about your assumptions about overtures.
Is it?
So historically, they were made. I mean, this goes all the way back to basically overtures came from pre-musical theater, which would have been opera, and pre that, which would have been like Shakespeare, and things of that nature. And they literally were just a cue, sometimes played before the lights even went down, to cue, rather than, now on shows we get like the ding or the lights flashing or whatever. It seems as though, which makes complete sense, because without electricity, what do you have to cue that a show will begin? You have an orchestra. Don't ask me why it took literally 30 some years of my life to figure that out until now. But that does make complete sense, because you would have literally nothing else to tell people, hey, shut up and sit down, other than, I don't know, this 20-piece orchestra that's playing.
Can I go ahead and just throw a piece of psychology in here as to why I always thought that?
Go for it.
It takes 7 to 14 minutes to get people to focus on a task. And so if you truly want them to be into a show without rooting the beginning part, you need to have something that causes them to focus in. And so something like music is the easy way, like, okay, sit down. Granted, back then they didn't have snacks like that, but like unravel your snacks, put your stuff down, get situated in your seat, and then we go. And so in my head, I always thought those two things were connected. Like, you're priming the people to be prepared, so you're not like, oh wait, what happened? We had 3 songs and I missed what was going on. And then that also causes a distraction, because most people will then ask the person next to them, what's going on? What's going on in Chicago right now?
Correct. Can't afford to miss it.
So thank you for checking that. Then I'm glad that I was a little bit knowledgeable. But I think you're right too, though. It sets the scene. 100% sets the scene for like what you're going to explain for Chicago. And it kind of plays all that music that's going to show up later, like the themes or like the riffs that are going to show up later in the show.
Yeah, really like a montage of what is about to go down.
Correct. So when we're looking at Act 1, and again, this is a very music-heavy show with a score by John Kander and lyrics by Fred Ebb. What really stands out to you from this list? And it's interesting because I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, there's 2 songs on here that stuck out to me. And I wonder if the 2 songs that stuck out to you. So I'm going to, of course, give you the floor, because you are our music man. You are the huge Jonkman of our duo here. I'm just the Sutton Foster.
I mean, are you looking at the full list or act by act?
We're doing Act 1. Like, give me Act 1. What stands out to you about Act 1?
I mean,
You're like, give me Act 2, please. You can give me the whole show.
Like, I'm biased to the songs that I knew prior.
Okay. Then give me those. What songs did you know prior that did you feel really stood out about Chicago?
Well, All That Jazz, which is basically the opening number, right after the overture. So that's always like a poignant, like, we are starting here, we set the scene. And then the infamous Selbach Tango, which I didn't realize was so soon, like so early in the show. Like, I was expecting it to be like close to the end of Act 1. or mid, like at the most mid act 1. So for it to be number 3 out of 14, I was like, "Oh, like we've already gotten here."
Yep. It shocked me the first time I saw it because I was like, what do you mean Cellblock Tango isn't like the closing song of Act One? Or like, why? What do you mean it's not until halfway through? It felt so top heavy of a show that it kind of shocked me a little bit that when it was like, all that jazz. Oh, I know that song. Okay, I don't know number 3, but number 4 you do. I was like, what is. I remember the first time, and even in this one, I was like, what is going on? That is really just a lot at the very beginning of a show when you still have 14 songs to get through Act One.
Yeah. It well, and honestly, everything I feel like almost aside from maybe We Both Reached for the Gun,
Yes, correct.
I
I
don't
was
know.
gonna I was gonna say the songs that always stand out to me, and it's funny because I didn't go for all that jazz, and I knew that's where you were gonna go, but I always go Cell Black Tango and We Both Reach for the Gun. In fact, I think I might have oversold We Both Reach for the Gun to you prior to walking into Chicago, because that was the one that really stuck out to me the first time about how kind of cool of a duet it is. It's not like a traditional duet, but there's still like a duetishness of it. And so it's interesting for me that like it's Cell Block Tango and We Both Reach for the Gun, and for you it's like all that jazz and Cell Block Tango, which really just shows that like knowledge before you go in is almost power here.
Yeah, and I think and We Both Reach for the Gun is it's a very unique dynamic happening. I mean, I can't think of another show that really does that unless it's like straight up puppetry. Um, but
Set the scene for the people.
I mean, ultimately, oh, Billy is utilizing Roxy as a puppet to explain her side of the story to the public. And in fear, kind of that Roxy's gonna say something she shouldn't, he is feeding her ultimately what to say and how to be perceived. Um, which honestly, it doesn't like sound super hard, but when you see it happening in action, just knowing all the logistics between that and the fact that the band is behind them, um, very interesting to me logistically.
Yes. I mean, it's like a really cool bit of choreographed dancing there. And like there's a lot of dancing in the show, so I don't want to say it's like the best dancing, but I remember when I first saw it, it was cool because like Roxy's back is to Billy, Billy's back is to the band, and somehow all the pieces are going off that make it look like it's all just happening simultaneously, which again, tons of rehearsal, plenty of practice, but it is a really cool, just like a bit of like actual theater magic without there being much going on stage around that.
Yeah, it's simple, right? Like simple in the idea, but not simple in the actual act of doing it.
I do want to talk about something that I noticed though as we are sitting here looking at the sheet. How come it's every other song that's actually narratively important? I thought every song was telling the narrative here, but if you look at it, so the overture, I would argue maybe doesn't have a narrative, but then all that jazz, not super narrative. Funny Honey narrative, Cellblock Tango, not very narrative. When You're Good to Mama narrative, Tap Dance, not very narrative. Like it's like every other song is just kind of like a showpiece. I hadn't noticed that until now.
Yeah, it's kind of like we were getting Roxy's story, but then we were getting everything else that's happening around her. Every other, we're talking about the jail, then we're back to Roxy, then we're talking about the husband, then we're back to Roxy, then we're talking about the lawyer, then we're back to Roxy. Like it's just a play back and forth because of course, like I mean, it would be over in one act if we were only looking at Roxy.
For sure. And when you're looking into Act Two, and there's a question I'm going to use after we talk about Act Two real quick, because Razzle Dazzle was Razzle Dazzle was your favorite song. Why do songs like All That Jazz, Cell Black Tango, and Razzle Dazzle, why are they such like pieces of theater lore that everybody keeps coming back to? What is it about these songs that really have stood the test of time that are making or breaking Chicago?
Well, I mean, it that song specifically is such like a that is like the epitome of old school kick line, like uh couple. I think there's at least one or two key changes in there. Um that's supposed to feel impressive, even though like it's technically not that difficult of a song. But it does exactly what the title implies. It's razzle, it's dazzle. It's supposed to make you be wowed a little bit. Um, but there's a lot of interpretations that could happen from that as well. So, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure if that as a company number, I guess I could say that that's a favorite, but if it comes down to that versus like some solo pieces, I'm not sure it would win the day.
What would win the day? Putting you on the spot.
I'm trying.
Pick
I can't remember which
pick your
one it.
favorite child. No, I
It
think
was
this is
such.
hard.
It was a song. I mean, when you're good to Mama, Alex just like is absurd with
So
their run.
good, so
But there
good.
was another song, and I'm trying to remember which one it was that Velma did, and it was equally insane. Like people were losing their minds, and I can't remember.
I think it was Class, and it also had Mama Morton in it.
Yes, which of course, powerhouse number.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where it's really interesting. I think that every number that had Velma in it, for me, was a standout performance. I just think that she was so good. Robin Herder was such a good performer that almost any song that Velma was giving me, I was like, yes, give me more. Yes, give me more. And she made it look so effortless. Like there was just some notes that she was hitting, and I was like, how are you hitting that without just like burning out your vocal cords? And she made it look like it was just like a simple talking, and then she would just move on with her life. And so like anything with Velma was just top notch for me.
Yeah, it was one of those performances that it's the separation between like good and great. The seamlessness, like when an actor makes something look effortless, that is when I'm the most impressed. Because there were a lot of performances in this that were impressive, but you could tell that the person was like exhausted. And then Robin was out here doing absurd dancing and powerhouse singing and then just strutting off. And I'm sure she was exhausted, but like you couldn't even it looked like it was just a walk around the corner. Like it was nothing.
With I think that's part of that's great segue into the dancing as well, because when you look at them singing and dancing, I can't do this alone with Velma, where she's literally like high kicking, trying to get like this is a song, everybody, that she's trying to get Roxy to come and do a performance with her. Let's be a sister act. So she's trying to show her what her and her sister used to do. This actress is literally kicking her leg completely to the sky, practically hitting herself in the face with her shin. And like that's not easy for most people. And she's doing this while singing high notes, while walking across the stage, doing this over and over and over again. It was absolutely mind-boggling, and it just shows you how musically and like dancey wise how intense this show is. This is a very dance heavy show where you're also supposed to be a performer. And it's not in that part. To me, I'm like, is that what vaudeville was really like, or is that also just Bob Fosse's style, just throwing up on top of Chicago?
Yeah, that I mean, the dance in that number is insane, or I'll say the choreography. Um Again, exhausting. I'm like, okay, how many yoga classes are you in? Because that's a stupid amount of high kicks. Um But yeah, same thing. Like the dancing is so, again, it's unique to the show, it's unique to the time. Fosse, like everybody knows. Um, and we don't really get it anywhere else. So I feel like they really maximized what they could utilize in the show because of that.
Like you really felt his thumbprint kind of on all that jazz, like with the hats and the way that they're moving. Which is another, again, dance heavy show. Cellback Tango, another dance heavy show, and there was some clear Fosse style. I think that's what Chicago does best. When you look at this show, it's again not set heavy, not story heavy, but truthfully, the emphasis is put on the performers and their performances. Like that is the standout feature of the show.
Yeah. I mean, and everyone was wearing like white and black or just black. And so you're forced to look at the person and the things that they're doing and the faces they're making and they're singing. Um, there's nothing to distract you from that. And, but that's what makes you appreciate all of the hard work that they are doing. Um, because you're so focused, you're so honed in, because ultimately you have to be.
Before we move on from music, though, I do think we need to talk about Mr. Cellophane. Our audience lost their minds with that song. And this is where I was really thinking about this, too. That was where we really learned that this was a show that was for theater people and not for like the general audience, because the people that were there were more tuned in than I've ever seen them. But also that song, which I think that most people would just glance over, Mr. Cellophane was a standout moment for the audience.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've heard the song before. Also, go back to your Glee days. Um,
Is that in Glee?
it is. Kurt sings it.
I missed that completely.
I've heard the song a million times, hated it every single time. This performance, okay, first of all, not what I thought it was gonna be. Like I had zero context. And honestly, even probably a quarter of the way into the performance, I was like, good God, here we go. And then for some reason, I like clicked what he was actually saying, hit me. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much more sense and is so incredibly powerful, which you do not get. Like if you don't know the context of the song, you're not getting it. Like it just, you're like, why is this song even exist? But yeah, they lost their minds, and rightfully, for minimal movement. It was an incredibly powerful performance, and I still don't even know why. Like it just, it was just so good. There's something crazy about just standing in one spot on a stage, putting on gloves and taking them off and walking off stage, and people just losing their minds.
Now, listeners, I wish that RJ was kidding, but that's literally all that happens. He walks down the steps, he puts on gloves, he sings a song, takes them off, and walks on stage. There's nothing else going on other than him just singing. And it was one of the most captivating performances of the entire show.
I think it was because his face didn't change. Like, which sounds very boring, but his voice, he was still emoting what the song calls for, but the character is just kind of so aloof that you couldn't help but feel so bad.
Sure.
Um,
Like, this is a moment where he's lost pretty much everything, and he realizes that he is nothing more important than a piece of cellophane. Like, this is like, it's a really huge emotive moment in this entire show. And yet he seems like he It's like when you're talking to somebody and they're just they've like lost there's no emotion left. Like there is emotion, but he's just like so done. And it was like just that was so captivating to watch him on there. Like Raymond Bakor just gave a performance that was just in that moment. Up to that moment, I didn't really feel it, but in that moment, I was like, oh wait a second, Amos is like the good guy here.
Well, and I think we've all experienced a moment, if not a few, where you feel invisible, and how awful that feels, but how you really can't do much about it. Like once you've done everything about it that you can, and it's still the outcome, um, you just do what he did, which is just walk away. But I will say, and I don't know if you have any inkling here, the gloves. Why?
That is a good question. I can give you why I thought it was.
Go for it.
So my mind automatically went to Mickey Mouse, and this is how I'm gonna connect those pieces. Please bear with me. It felt in a way of like clown gloves, and in that moment, he felt like a clown after everything he'd done for Roxy, the back and the forth, the divorcing and the knot and all that stuff. He felt like an absolute clown, and so to him, it was almost like mime gloves. He puts them on and he's like doing all the actions and stuff like that. And he's trying to be a good dad and a good husband. And he just feels like a clown at the end of the day that everyone's kind of laughing at. So at the very end, when he's taking them off, it's kind of a way of him releasing it, but also in a way like declaring war against those people who have made him feel like a clown. Like, not that he's trying to fight them, but he's just like, I'm removing the shackles of clownness that you've placed on me. And so that could be completely off at all, but that's kind of how I felt with the gloves.
Interesting. I guess they are a tribute to Burt Williams, who was a famous black vaudeville entertainer who wore the white gloves for his popular somber song Nobody. And this was a staging choice implemented by the OG director to kind of thematically connect the two songs about being, like we just talked about, being invisible, being overlooked. But I mean, I like your interpretation too. I also think that what it implies when you put gloves on, right? Like the gloves are white, they're a tangible thing that he is now wearing, which now doesn't that technically make him no longer invisible?
Correct. Yes.
So he's visible for a moment to us, but then he takes the gloves off again and walks off. So all very interesting. Learning so
But
much today.
when you think about that interpretation, which I also love, is that's the one moment that he actually addresses the audience. As we're cheering for him and we're clapping for him, he stops and he turns around and he gives us a smile. And so that's the first time you really that would be interesting. That's the one time he's tangible. That makes sense. I think that we're all right. We're just going to accept multiple answers because life and art is worth of interpretation.
Correct. Art is meant to be received however you receive it.
So speaking of the art, before we go on to our verdict, is with the lighting and the all dark stage, lack of set design, everybody's wearing kind of black. Did you like the way that Chicago was crafted stage-wise? Like, did it make sense? Again, we said it kind of felt like a vaudeville show, so if you look at it that way, it kind of does make sense because there's not much going on. But does it like distract or deter from the story of Chicago?
No, I mean there was really not much to distract. I am curious/interested. So there's ladders on either side of the stage that basically swing out from the wings for like a couple songs. And they use them for songs that like aren't some sometimes it's just like, oh, like you're on a ladder singing this song. You're not like on a ladder, like the character's not on a ladder, fit like intentionally, but it's just something for them to be doing rather than standing center stage singing to us. Um, so craft wise, like that was interesting because I'm like, why? I mean, there's
What did they
one
do?
instance that made sense to me, and everything else just kind of felt like, well, we have these ladders here, we might as well use them.
I will say when if we're backtracking to the very beginning of the show, when Roxy comes out and she's at the top of the ladder and people went crazy, I was like, why are we clapping? Because it didn't even dawn on me what was going on until I think it took the spotlight to shine on Roxy to shine on Kate. That I was like, oh, okay. And then again, like it didn't make a lot of sense for the story. I was like, okay, maybe she's on the fire escape of her building. Like again, it was a very, I don't want to say distracting, but again, I guess I didn't understand the purpose. I didn't understand what those ladders were doing, other than the fact of like we need to have movement somewhere, and we have this little bit of space right here, so we're gonna do something here just to distract people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like, part of me, is like, okay, is it supposed to be symbolic for literally climbing the ladder? Like we talk about privilege and the people who were able to get out and ultimately be found innocent, even though they weren't, based on the privilege or status that they had or the amount of money. Like, is there symbolism there? Again, all up for interpretation. But aside from that, like, I honestly couldn't think of anything.
So that being said, I do want to talk about what we think of the final, like the overall show as we're going into this. And I'm gonna preface this by saying that I would see the show again, though I think it would depend on the stunt casting of who's in the show. I think that like if it was a star I really wanted to see, it would be a cool show to see them in. Because again, it's easily digestible. It gives you that very classic Broadway feel. It is enjoyable. It's a fun little romp. It's not as long as a lot of other shows nowadays. The first act was only an hour, and the second act was just under an hour. We were out within 2 hours time, which was crazy. But I think that this is not a show that I would seek out just for the story. Um, and now I'm waiting for you to be like, actually, I loved this so much that I would see it every time we went to New York, and now you're going to see it with me every time we go back to New York. So go ahead, lay it on me.
No, I would agree. I would be interested in seeing this show again for the sole purpose of maybe some casting differences or choices. Um, I can't say that this would be like my favorite show to go see. Like if I had a selection of shows to go see on a community level or even like amateur professional, like I'm probably not really drawn to the show. But yeah, again, when it comes to stunt casting and just being in the original element, I did like the way that they presented the show. Um, but
So I would say it's probably like a solid B minus for me, C plus maybe. Where's that grade for you? Score it.
yeah, I would say I think B minus feels right. Feels kind.
I feel like this was a show, and I'm gonna say this again. We love to go to shows. We love to take our parents to shows. Well, mostly your mom, to shows. My mom loves shows as well, but she doesn't go to the theater quite as often. I feel like this is a show that I would take your mother to. Like if your mom wanted to see it and you were like, "Let's go see it," I'd probably go see it because I feel like that's a show that a certain type of Broadway lover would love. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I think if you grew up knowing that this was a show that came out, which probably would have been my mom's generation, because I think she has the record for the show, she they would appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely. And so with that, we are done with our Chicago discussion, but stay tuned for future episodes of the BSB podcast. Thank you again for joining us here in our box seats. Until next curtain call.